Hello and welcome to the Hypertrophy Odyssey, chapter 438. It is the second day of the week, aka the special beam cannon workout. I'm feeling very good right now. Very excited for this workout. But anyways, to the main subject matter for today. The perception of money is ever changing and very different. So the main reason why I wanted to discuss this is because of the fact that I do believe that a lot has changed in terms of money, not only just inflation, but also physically holding money and also as well as crypto. I've made an episode before about Bitcoin right here where I talked about how I do like Bitcoin and I hate the banks. I don't like the banks at all. Not a fan. Don't like them at all. I will make an entire episode about as to why and a whole other host of things, but it is interesting specifically because today I looked at my bank account. It wasn't much in there, but still, I think that physically, like if I would have seen that in a physical sense and not just a number on a screen, I think I would have freaked out a little bit more than I am currently. Yeah, like right now, it's whatever. It's not that big of a deal. But at the same time, if it should be a big deal. That's the interesting thing, and I think it's very telling about how money has changed, whether it be something like inflation, which we'll get to, or just having money whenever paying for something, with with actual cash, and how there is just changed so much that it's become very interesting to see how easily people fall into the traps of things like credit cards or one tap pay or one button purchases or things like that. So in today's episode, we're going to be looking at that and just exploring that a little bit because it's something that it's interesting because I think I wouldn't say that I'm the last generation of credit cards physical cash, because it's still going to be around. I don't think that that's going to go away anytime soon. But at the same time, it is something that some people probably have never actually seen certain physical bills in their life, like they have avoided it in a certain sense. So just for example, the $2 bill, that's something that could be something unique that people are like, whoa, what the fuck? This exists? Some people don't even know that the $half exists. So it's an interesting thing. But with that being said, we'll get into a whole bunch of stuff like that and a few other things when we get to Mother Base. All right, so start this day off with squats, which are pretty good. But anyways, back to the main subject matter for today. The perception of money is ever changing. So the main reason why I want to discuss this is because I heard the other day that basically 10K is not that much money, but you want 10K. It would be a good amount. And also, most likely than not, you probably just don't have $10,000 just sitting there. That is the main point of that statement. But it also puts into perspective how much money has kind of distorted our views in theory. Because in theory, 10K isn't that much money in the grand scheme of things. But at the same time, if you had $10,000, it would be probably very nice. It wouldn't necessarily be something to scoff at. You wouldn't be like, whatever. You would probably be like, oh, this is good. I'm okay. That helps out a lot. But that's the thing. I think that the perception of money has been changing ever so a lot recently, specifically because the elimination of physical dollars has made it so that people don't really get the idea of the barriers that once were involved with money. $1,000 on a card versus $1,000 physical cash, much big of a difference if you're going to actually try to spend it. It's just a huge mental difference seeing it physically versus seeing it digitally. And I think that has been detrimental to our idea of what money is like. Seeing it on a screen is absolutely nothing, especially in the fact that banks don't necessarily even need to have it. It's just a literal number on the screen. There's nothing to say that this even really exists. That's a whole other discussion in a certain sense. But at the same time, whenever you're looking at something physical like cash or even coins, you can visually see when you're using a lot of it or just getting less and less of it. Spending $300 via a one tap Apple Pay card or Apple Pay watch is completely different than just giving the person a stack of $15-$20 bills. It's a huge difference. You can feel the difference of you losing it in a certain sense rather than using the one tap and then boom, there you go. Now, of course, there are things like the convenience of just being able to tap it or just use a card. That's it. You don't have to worry about carrying all this cash. But
also, that's also what banks and other institutions like that have kind of counted on. So then that way you're not really thinking about what you're purchasing. You're getting away from the idea of what you're giving up because it's numbers on a screen. As long as the transaction goes, it doesn't matter. And this is kind of what credit card companies prey on with people, because at the end of the day, as long as the transaction goes through and you get your little sweet treat or whatever the hell you're using your credit card for, then it doesn't matter what the back end of it says, because at the end of the day, it's just a number that might be going up a little bit, but it's still kind of going down. It all just depends on your interest rates, right? But a very nasty thing to be happening when it happens to people, because I think that now you're just not seeing the effect of all of the things like inflation. It's just kind of beyond you. And there are people out there that are scared to look at their bank accounts, which is an insane thing, because then they could go through life just not even knowing what's happening to them. But they are just know that the account is there being drained or filled up. They don't even know. They don't know what the hell they're spending it on. And it sucks in a certain sense, because that's kind of that's what banks want, because then that way you're not in shock if you all of a sudden have $2. It's just your fucking fault because you didn't pay attention to anything that you're doing. But the banks don't give a shit, because at the end of the day, it's just a digital number. It's not real. So that's not saying money isn't necessarily real, but because it's digital, anybody can do anything on their end. It doesn't necessarily mean that these things are actually stored somewhere, you know? And I think that makes it so that now we don't look at money the same. It's not going to be the same. Now, I don't think that doesn't mean that I don't think cash is going to be unavailable in the future. But I do think that as time progresses and as things as crypto gets more and more popular, I think that we're going to move away from all physical money, which is going to cause a lot of issues. Realistically, the fact that probably the people are going to be so out of bounds with money where they're not even going to know where anything of it is, and the fact that banks could probably just say, hey, you have no money, you know, they could probably just siphon some out. And of course they're not going to do that. That seems crazy. But then again, banks have probably been doing worse shit from behind the scenes than we could ever probably realize. It's just one of those things that I find interesting with now in today's society, how we've gotten okay with the lack of physicality stuff. I hope that because of the switch that has happened in like how we consume media, how people want physical media again, I hope that the want for physical bills comes back. Obviously, the coin is gone, but that's just inflation being a fucking asshole. So that's just gone forever, which is sad, because I remember when having quarters was a huge deal. Now, if you have quarters, it's just a waste of space.
And just to add a note here, I did not talk about inflation or shrinkflation in this episode because I will make an entire episode about it. But, of course, that is a major factor in how we see money and how we are getting fucked over by getting way less stuff for way more money, and how that is now the norm, and it fucking blows. But that's for a different story for a different day. And we're back. Welcome to the workout debriefing. Exercise is not filmed, none. Exercise is skipped, also none. Got everything in, thankfully. But anyways, back to the main subject matter for today. The ever-changing view on money. So the main reason why I want to discuss this is because I was watching a video and this guy was talking about how money has just kind of changed. He still keeps physical dollars in his wallet because, you know, he likes to see the money going away, but he's also an older guy, so that is something more common. But it is interesting to see how much people have changed really the modicum of how things go when it comes to money, whether it be digital or physical or something in between, where, you know, it's a cryptocurrency where technically it doesn't exist physically, but yet people will, even something like that was undervaluing what Bitcoin was. You know, what is it, that one guy who paid like 2,000 Bitcoin for that pizza or whatever? It was a stupid number, and now that Bitcoin's worth like $18 billion or some shit like that. And it's like there's so many things examples like that where people will just get something that is later on valuable in some way or another and just kind of discard it because it's
technically to them it's just e-waste, it's just a file on in a folder in some computer somewhere, not realizing the magnitude of what they're holding. I think in history people understood that there are certain things that are just rare, but only rare in certain areas. Like in Africa they're huge in gold. There was like that one, I think it was
Masa Musa, I think it was his name. I don't know. I forgot his name, but he was the biggest gold emperor in all of Africa, and for him, gold was like nothing. But yet, everywhere else in the world, it was like very scarce, and it became a whole commodity. And there's a whole banking system based on it, but it doesn't really exist. But we'll talk about that in some other day because I hate banking. But generally, the way we've perceived money within our own lives is very interesting. I think like I said, I'm like one of the last generations to really like physical cash. I think most of the time now, if you even like bring out a bill at some places, they'll just kind of look at you like, what the fuck? Most places now are just becoming cashless, which is slightly not necessarily that good in a certain sense, because obviously you can spend way more without having to see the physical item going away, and I think that eventually, maybe one day they'll go enter a social credit system, but that's kind of separate. But that's a different story for a different day. I think that this entire idea of it being all digital is not necessarily that good, mostly because you don't know what's happening. The money could be gone in an instant. Things can happen like that. Obviously, this could always have happened, but at the same time, I think that when there's people in control and they could literally zero you out within a matter of seconds for, let's just say, maybe you did something wrong, or maybe you said something on the internet you probably shouldn't have said. It's a very scary or frightening aspect to it. And I think that mostly people are starting to get numb to the idea of paying, of money, and then they're even getting to beyond money that isn't theirs. There's the entire example of girl math, which I don't understand, but it exists, as well as pay later and all those credit card issues, because credit cards are a whole monster that should be abolished, but different story for a different day. But still, money is very interesting to see how it's changed throughout the years, especially specifically because it's like I still have just physical cash, but it's weird to use it. It's like, oh, okay, I might as well use this while I have it. It's very interesting. But then when I don't have it, I feel it missing, if that makes any sense. So it's very interesting. But with that being said, though, tell me what you think in the comment section down below. I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions about this one. Please, if you like physical cash, or know that you have still like a gold dollar, please let me know in the comment section down below. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Please share this video with anybody who may or may not like it. I will be back on tomorrow with a new video. Thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I will see you in the next one. Keep it heavy, stay safe out there, and stay warm, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.